Go ahead. I always live in fear of losing my microphone, and I almost did. Okay. Anyhow, welcome to the next hour and a half of discussions within the IP Showcase. And we're really trying to focus on end user applications, you know, how people are doing things. And I'm extremely excited to have Judy Parnall with us. She is kind of a double hitter. So she's not only very active within the BBC, which is her her employer or whatever, but she's also extremely active within the EBU in terms of developing these standards, getting them delivered and things like that. So she's got some really good opinions about what we need to do as an industry towards standardization and the benefits of this. So I'm really looking forward to this, and welcome, Judy.
Thanks, Wes. And thanks for the step as well. When you're as short as I am, you often have a problem seeing over the top, so this makes a really good change. So as said, I chair the EBU's technical committee, and we steer a lot of the work that goes on within the EBU. So I come representing the public service broadcasters, all 70 plus of them across Europe. So the promise of IP has brought that promise of up-to-date facilities and future-proof facilities. What you need to always remember is that broadcasters have a replacement cycle that is longer than you think. So actually, the investment cycles can be, we're buying for 5 to 10 years in the future. So actually, being up-to-date but future-proof is really key for us. So we need to make sure that's what we're thinking of, and it's the promise that's going. A lot of this stuff isn't new. You know why we're going to IP. Replacement of copper with glass, having facilities, being able to do remote production. That's really tempting and appealing, so you don't have to shift your whole production team for an outside broadcast off somewhere, but you can gather it all in the cloud and bring it back to your production center. Cost, of course, when you look at and the mixed economy of different business models as well. And then the mixed economy of different video formats. You're seeing enough of them around here when you look. We've got used to people talking for a while, haven't we, about 4K, 8K, but actually if you go around now, I'm sure you're seeing much more of 5G and delivery to handhelds, to mobiles, potentially lower resolutions as well, and different frame sizes. We've all gone 16 by 9. Actually, what are we now going by? 9 by 16. Oh, heck, we're changing the shape of our video as well. So the flexibility that we need as public service broadcasters to deliver to all our audiences however they want to receive it, that is what we are mandated to do often by our governments. And so that's what we need to be looking to deliver. It's not just a commercial decision. It's actually something we're obliged to do. These are some of the challenges for traditional broadcasting industry. Looking at identity, dynamic provisioning, actually being able to change things on the fly. Being able to automate. Actually, is the timing and the synchronization correct? How can we discover the different services? Is it secure? How do we get it around the media transport? Are those connections working properly? Is it resilient? Can we control it? Can we monitor it? All the things that go together that you will know very, very well, but actually to make an installation and a broadcast system work in practice to keep us on air 324 hours a day, 365 days a year and 366 on a leap year, we need to be there. We are expected to be delivering those services. In many cases, the public service broadcasters are part of the emergency system for our governments. We need to be there. It really can become a problem at certain critical moments if we fall off air. For instance, if there was in the middle of a natural disaster or some sort of public service, public incident, we need to be there because people come to us to find out what's going. And that's the time that the infrastructure can be really under strain. And those infrastructures do need to be reliable, 100%. The expectation for media transport really is coming on basis of what we've been used to with SDI. So we want it uncompressed. Can we actually go uncompressed in production? Of course, there's even the very large bit rates, or even actually, if you go in compressed, we want light compression, because if you compress too much early in the production chain, it shows up on screen. It can look horrible. Those errors compound. I've done many years of actually picture quality testing. You've got to make it as clean as possible close to the camera. You can't go too low on your compression. But at the same time, it needs to be low latency. And we want very few errors. And actually, we used to be being specialist, but this obviously is changing. But we want to keep, particularly the low latency, the errors and the quality. They remain really, really important. What do we want? And then what do we want from our infrastructure? It needs to be cost effective. We're all under, whether you're a commercial broadcaster, whether you're a public service broadcaster, we are under financial pressures. So we need to be spending money wisely. If for us, our money comes from the taxpayer, it is a legal obligation for people, if they're watching television, whether over air or via IP, people need to pay us. And so we actually have to be really wise in how we're spending the public service money. When I started in the BBC 30 years ago, we had a unit of currency called a granny. And a granny was the amount that every person spent for their license fee, which was what they paid to us. And it kept us thinking, actually, every time we spend this money, it is Auntie Mabel's money. It is your grandmother's money. It is the old lady up the road. Am I spending that money wisely? It needs to be flexible. Well, we don't know actually what we want to change. There might be new services coming on. We want to be able to add extra cameras. We need to be perhaps adding an extra studio. We want to be able to change things easily. It needs to be reliable, as I've said. It needs to be secure. We've seen enough attacks coming against media players. The France 5 attack that actually took them off air a couple of years ago. We need to make sure our infrastructure is secure. And then it needs to be easy to configure. And it needs to be as easy for us to configure as it is for some of the IT industry. We need to pick those things up as well. And it needs to be interoperable. Don't lock us in, please. We have procurement rules that we have to go for. And actually, if you come and you're not interoperable with other people, to be honest, we might go elsewhere because we don't want to be locked into a vendor. It is in your vendor's commercial interests to be interoperable, because then we are more likely to come and look at you. So, what are some of the things that we've found because as you all know, there are now beginning to be some production facilities going out and really coming to the fore now. And one of the things that has been happening within the EBU context is that actually, let's be honest, we talk to each other. We find out that this broadcaster in this country has got a facility that they have been putting on air and moving to IP. And the next one that's looking about a year down the line will say, oh, how did you fix that? What have you done about that? Where have you found this problem? We will share information and learning between each other. So just be aware of that. We do talk. And we know each other as well. So a lot of these people are going to be talking separately, and we'll come to you with some more information. But I'll very quickly go through BBC Cymru Wales in Cardiff, which is a new broadcast centre in the centre of Cardiff in 2 languages, across 3 television networks, and radio networks as well, plus online, mobile, supporting an orchestra. Gosh, bet you didn't think of that one. A number of production facilities, both for things like news, but also drama is really big in Wales. It's a major production centre for our drama. It has the largest drama studio site. A certain programme called Doctor Who gets produced out of Wales. And this is now at the point it has a large general purpose studio, flexible production areas, VR, AR areas, edit suites, radio areas. Mark, when he speaks, can give you the numbers. But what have they found in practice? Well, the benefits they found are future-proofing, so particularly ability to adopt to new formats, flexibility, and the industry standard has been roughly the time scale as the building, and eventually it'll be the lowest cost model, because as we can get to COTS hardware, just off-the-shelf hardware, and moving onto a generic platform with more distributed routing, that should bring the costs down. But there are risks. These, as we said, the standards are moving in a very similar timescale. So therefore, they're not all, there's some of the interoperability are not proven as the standards are new. Again, the cybersecurity risks. There's skills that we need that are different from the ones that we've had. The broadcast engineer and the IT engineer have come up through a very different route, and they're actually needing to merge the skills and train each other. There's been a lot of work happening on doing that the EBU and others have been doing that training, but it is a new generation of people. So actually we've discovered that perhaps some of the resources we've needed to deliver it have been more than planned. And the refresh cycles are much faster. As I said, these traditional capital plans aren't fitting as well. That becomes a challenge then. Some others that we found on the audio, SD211030 and AS67 almost compatible, but we found subtle differences. We're having to use some MADI as bridging between the ecosystems, and we've had to consider latency between them. PTP, the chiming protocols, it's complicated, and it's been expensive to implement. And actually, that is I would say, the issues around PTP is what I'm hearing most often about the challenges when you're actually trying to make it happen in practice. NMOS control was highly desired, but useful operability hasn't been delivered wasn't delivered in time for the project, despite all the hard work that's going on. You've got to understand our buildings, often the buildings are time elapsed, so the equipment is becoming unreliable. We can't just delay a building to wait for the standards to come. Sometimes we have to move into, at those timescales. And then when we come across to Zurich, so this is the Swiss project in SRG, and that they're looking for. I've taken all these comments that actually came from the EBU's Network Technology Seminar presentations that happened in June. So what they found is they've had some real challenges to actually make it work. They were hoping to be on air imminently, and it has been delayed slightly. But they've had problems around dynamic audio configuration, PTP, timing, security, NMOS, and the network architecture. You're feeling some sort of common things in practice? Great things that we all thought would work in practice, but actually ironing them out to be interoperable and to make it work in practice is, and at the scale that you're looking at when you come to the buildings, is where there can be challenges. In Montreal, Louis Lamar talked about some of the aspects about resilience, and that should say redundancy. I just realized last night that I'd managed to invent a new word. But actually, it is complex. You need to get your resilience, to get your redundancy, so you are on air 24 hours a day, 365 or 366 days a year, when there is when it's normal running, and when there is a major crisis, it's complicated. You need your architecture, the PTP, the timing particularly needs to be simple, reliable, and practical. It's extending redundancy might not be as good as you think. So PTP monitoring found it's been more important than PTP redundancy. And what we found is that don't expect devices to report errors, problems, and degradations. You need to keep monitoring it. So this is why a lot of work's been going on with EBU and partners coming together around monitoring. And you can't test everything. These installations are really, really common. It's very difficult to test every edge case, but at least test your general master clock failover scenarios. Make sure that those actually work so that you can stay on air. So how do we actually change these challenges, these complaints? These are some that have come up, you see, over the time. Some have already been fixed. But how do we make sure that we actually, these complaints and the things we hear come into positive contributions? So things like, how can I ship them? How can I make sure that vendor X works with vendor Y? So this was the land where we were a year ago. We had many specifications and standards. Fantastic. Loads of work's been done. They look great. But they've been done by multiple groups. And there have been lots of plugfests and demos, but there are lots of options. And once you have lots of options, can I mix option A here with option B here, and does that fit? And which ones do I need to choose to make the whole lot together? And that is where the complexity really ramps up. And some bits of that had actually been missed. And so this led to non-interoperability, because vendor A might have chosen one option, vendor B might have chosen another. And when you think it should work, it just becomes a problem. So, the pyramid. It's back again. Actually, the EBU are really proud of the work we've done in saying, where does it fit and where are the challenges still? These, as we said, this is the minimum user requirements to build and manage an IP-based media facilities. These are the things we really need. Please, 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 manufacturers, everybody, take this seriously. We're not doing this just for fun. There are people really, really, really building buildings, making this want to work. People are staking their careers on it, staking the public money on it. We want this to happen. Must applaud JTNM TR-1001/1. That has beginning to pull out a lot of these parts around what the network needs to provide. So look around DNS, around what media nodes need to do, with the engineered network, rules for multicast, disconnect, recovery. Actually, please, let's take this, let's take it and implement it. The work is going on. Let's make it happen in practice. So the challenge is, we want SD2110, it promises to be that go-to standard, but it needs to be simple and a universal proposition. Those of us who've been around for a while, SDI was easy, it was straightforward in practice. This is much more complicated. To be honest, it's scary. When you're trying to build a building and plug it up, it's scary. So make it as simple and universal as possible. It works well with the media transport layer, albeit too many options, but it's only the tip. We need those configuration management tools to provide plug-and-play functionality that's needed by broadcasters. Sometimes we have a long time to plan a new building. Sometimes we're needing to plug something up in an extra facility very quickly. I think in the UK we might have a general election coming. We're going to need to be plugging in a lot of extra fees, contributions. We used to be able to do that very easily with the SDI. Help us to do that, please, in moving into this world. NMOS is an integration is key to enable systems to function together, but we need that further adoption. And we need that confident leap from the labs to mature and reliable products. You know, you've got our backing that we're keen for it. Make it, please help us to make it happen. And the more projects that specify and install IP equipment, as soon as this will happen. But issues with NMOS support and multiple options within standards are holding broadcasters back with the nervousness, and some actually, I'm afraid to say, have retreated back to, this is getting hard, this is getting really difficult. I might have to go back to using SDI. And I've heard that said in the very recent past. We don't want to go that way. Let's keep pushing forward. TR-1001 has deprecated NDS, DNS for installations anyway, and that is improving the situation. Keep testing. Please, interoperability testing is the key. And it's been great that talking to people who are at Wuppertal and the latest JTNM tested program, we're really hearing great news back from the manufacturers who won't take it just as a box ticking, but finding actually if something didn't pass the tests, that was a positive. We're taking it to a positive of, right, what's the problem? How can we fix it? How can we sort it? What do we need to change to make it happen? So please, let's keep testing. But there are automated tools as well. Make use of those. This will help to get all this equipment working together. EBU list and the NMOS test tools can really help to make all this happen and come together. And don't forget security. All it will take is a major security breach that takes the broadcaster off air, and the word will go round, and there will become increased nervousness. So please, make it easy to use and be secure. Design security in to your systems, and that will strengthen their long-term usability and the take-up as well. We haven't put all this money in and all this effort in and all the blood, sweat and tears and years of plug fests in all the standards bodies for it to fall, please to fall at the last hurdle. We want this to happen. Public service broadcasters need it. We're behind you. We're really pushing for it. So let's work together to make sure that it actually happens in practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. We've time for one question, if anybody has anything. You know, I just want to say thank you for giving us a report card. You know, as an industry, we really needed it. We need to hear where we're doing well, which I think is in a lot of places, but where we need to improve is really what we have to focus on. So definitely appreciate hearing about that. Any questions, anybody? Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.